Josh, how you doing?
Good, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's good to see you. You will also be able to hear two other people that they'll be actually to see you on the stream, but you won't be able to see in Zoom, unfortunately. So I'm here with Kevin and Brent as well.
Hey, Josh. How you doing, Josh?
All right. Hey, good to hear you guys, not see you guys.
Yeah, right? No, it's really good to connect. I'm glad this worked out. I always preface things off by saying, I always am able to bring kind of guests on to the show and do everything we can for charity by bugging the crap out of people. So Josh was no exception to that rule. So thank you for letting me bother you. I appreciate it.
No worries. It's hopefully I don't think it took much for me to agree to it. So it was an easy yes.
You don't have to be kind to me. But for people that don't know you, Josh, you mind doing a quick introduction? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I led a couple of different lives. I'll start from the beginning, which is most people know me as a game developer. I worked at Midway Games through the 90s and worked with the Mortal Kombat and NBA Jam teams, and then from there went on to work for EA. Opened up a couple of studios on my own. Worked on the Tony Hawk games, and 20 to 25 years later, I decided that I wanted to get into filmmaking. So I spent the last few years of my life creating this documentary about my early years at Midway Games. And that's led me to talking to you here.
To this beautiful Sunday morning, wherever we are.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And the name of the documentary is?
Oh, the name of the documentary. You can tell I'm really bad at plugging my own.
I'm trying to set you up here.
Right? I know. Thank you so much. You're the pro here, obviously.
I'm trying to give you softballs.
Yeah. No, the name of the documentary is Insert Coin, and it's coming out November 25th with Alamo Drafthouse Cinema on Demand, and also we partnered up with a bunch of virtual cinemas that are basically working with independent local theaters. So if you go on insertcoindoc.com on the screenings page, you can see, the closest theater nearby you that's working with us, and it's basically, it helps them out. Obviously it helped me out with the release of the film, but it helps out your local theaters, especially in these days. They can use all the help they can.
For sure. Because I know the film was originally you were selected for South by Southwest, right? And that was,
yeah, exactly.
That was when was that? I don't even know the exact date, but that was right when things started, right? I mean, it was like I remember because I follow you pretty actively on Twitter and everything. I think it was like the week of, it was like a day or two before, right? I mean,
yeah, it was like so South by Southwest was supposed to happen in March,
right?
And then it got canceled a week or two before that. Yeah. The whole world kind of shut down, and then the film since then has been in a bunch of other film festivals that have either were canceled or they went online. So it did have a film festival run, and I'm super thankful that the film getting accepted in the South by really helped move that along. So even though it wasn't the ideal situation, it still worked out really well.
Right, because I know you were supposed to be at the Cleveland International Film Festival as well, and that's actually where I first had read about it and seen it. They seen the trailer for it and got tickets for it, and then the same thing. Everything happened at that time. It was just a domino effect across the entire industry, right? I mean, it was like South by Southwest. I specifically remember it was like one of the first ones. When that was canceled, that was like a shockwave through all these cons and everything, right?
It was amazing. Yeah, I was like, because I think Cleveland was going to be right after South by Southwest. And so we were, me and my family, we're all getting ready for the whirlwind tour and stuff. And Cleveland was it's a short drive away from us here in Chicago. So we were really looking forward to it. But yeah, unfortunately, like I said, everything kind of shut down. So it kind of did our best.
Yeah, but you mentioned too, and we were talking about this before we came on too. I was like, I know I've seen it recently. I was like, either it came out this weekend or last week, but you mentioned it's coming out November 25th. So when you said it's coming out on demand, where can people watch it this week in 3 days?
Yes. Oh, so in 3 on Wednesday when it comes out, basically if you it's just streaming on these virtual cinemas. So when you go on the site insertcoindoc.com, you literally just click on info and it'll send you to the right link. So it's basically it's a premium pay-per-view event right now, and it's going to be like that for at least a few weeks before it then goes on to other video on demand services.
That's cool. Are you? I know you might not be able to talk about it, but are you working on trying to get it to other large platforms like Netflix or Amazon and other outlets?
Yes, yeah. So it's kind of like, we're following, in many ways, it's following the traditional channels of, like when a film goes to theater and then it goes to,
like you're doing these festivals, right? You build up that reputation,
exactly,
base, and then you can make the case to, hey, we need to release it here.
Exactly. So it's going through that, and so like it's kind of interesting because the whole virtual cinema thing is like a theatrical release because it's only on very specific areas, so it's going to be windowed into that for a few weeks, and then it'll go to paid video on demand. So it's kind of like iTunes, Amazon, Vudu, and things like that, and then from there will be a physical Blu-ray release, and then from there it goes into then we start talking to the streaming platforms, the subscription-based platforms like a Netflix or Hulu, things like that.
Well, good
so
luck.
Kind of taking it a platform at a time.
This is a big week then. Good luck. I mean, this is.
Oh my God.
Are you doing a lot of these then in anticipation of this week? Do you have a lot of whether it's virtual cons or interviews you're setting up or media? I imagine you're trying to hype it up, right?
Yeah, this past week has just been a whirlwind of just talking with various people and stuff, and just getting the word out. And it's been really nice because a lot of the people that are in the film have also been participating in interviews, so they've taken a bit of the slack. They've taken a bit of the work out of me, and they're taking over some things. So when you have characters like Mark Turmel and Eugene Jarvis and those guys, that's they're perfect for interviews. So thank goodness
they're perfect
they
for
can do
interviews,
that.
and hopefully they can help promote it too, because
exactly.
they got a huge following. So.
Does the stress go down now that the movie's complete and you're just kind of counting the days down, or does the stress increase?
Man, it's crazy. Like the the amount of work after you finish the film equals the amount of work making the film. I think. I mean, just just getting the film. Like once I finished editing the film and got everything done and everything, and I was ready to start showing the world, I didn't realize that was just a whole nother workflow I had to go through. So suddenly, you had to go through quality control. I had to, make sure that it ran properly on all these platforms. There's all the PR stuff, chasing down people. Yeah, it's a full-time job. And, I got lucky that Cargo Films and Releasing out in New York City, they're doing the distribution right now, and they've taken like a lot of this on. When I first started this project, it was kind of in my mind, it was a smaller personal project. So I was thinking to myself, hey, I was going to do a lot of the stuff myself. I wasn't really thinking big. And I didn't even think I was going to go to film festivals, to be quite honest with you. I just wanted to make this project and get it out there. And then when I got to the distribution part, I thought I was going to just do it myself. I just, in my nature, is like, I want to learn as much as possible. And thank goodness I got talked out of that.
There's only so much you can do.
It was just a juggernaut. It was just too much work. And so, and so luckily I'm learning a lot, about the process, because it's different from making games.
Yeah, I mean, and you mentioned, making games there, and I think you were modest in mentioning, just happened to work on NBA Jam and Tony Hawk and Mortal Kombat, just glossed over those. As part of it, honestly, that's kind of where it all started, right? I mean, you went through your timeline and your history.
Yeah. So I mean, that's I actually went to school for film, so I kind of got into video games by accident. But I love making video games. Obviously, I've been in it for almost 25 years, and so I think my love for. I'm sorry.
Oh no, nothing.
Oh, sorry. There's something. My love for video games and the process of making games, I think, I feel that I was able to get that into the film also. So it was a good marriage of my two, separate worlds.
Yeah, I mean, we talked to Franz Castrell and Melissa Wood. They were the producers behind High Score, right? That came out on Netflix.
Yeah.
So we had them on yesterday, and that was crazy fun. And we got to talk to them about that docuseries. And it was a
great series.
I bring that up because they kind of said the same thing, right? It's like you have a passion for it. It's something that's there, and you also are really into, obviously they're in the film industry, so it's kind of like a great marriage that you can take both something you're passionate about and turn into a great project, and then give something people that they're going to enjoy watching.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really nice, much like High Score, it's really nice to be able to, tell stories about products that people love, but but from a different angle. People know these games that I'm profiling, and they might have heard stories here and there, but to be able to kind of give them the backstory, or how it evolved from other games and things like that. It's nice. it's nice to hear from audience members when they say, "Wow, I was kind of surprised by that," or "I never realized that that happened."
Which is what we were talking about too yesterday. Like, there's a lot that came out in that specific docuseries too. Where like, I legit learned something, and we're probably the biggest nerds you can have that are doing this all weekend, but we're still learning things, and we'll probably learn a lot, obviously, in your film too. That's great. So
thank you.
That's okay. So I know this was originally crowdfunded via Kickstarter. When was that?
Yeah.
And like, how long did the entire process take? What was that like? What was the reception?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. I did the Kickstarter at the summer of 2015.
Okay.
And so that's 5 years ago. Yeah. And at the time, I thought, this is going to take maybe 2 years to make. I was like, I mean, seriously, it was like, it's a whole like ignorance is bliss type of thing. Like, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And part of the reason I did the Kickstarter was obviously to help fund it, but a major part of it was just to see if the idea was valid. That's one of the secret things about Kickstarter is that's a great way to find out if your idea is going to resonate with people without you spending too much time or money into it.
Yep.
So luckily it did really well, and the film got funded, and then I was kind of off to the races. But then at that point, moving on, it was like, as I started producing the film, and I was warned about this by other documentarians, is that, hey, you have to you go into it with a certain idea in mind, but you have to kind of let it flow, like see where it branches out to, because the story is put together in the editing, not when you're shooting it. And so as I was working on it, it really kind of blew up from there. As I was talking with more and more people, I would get, stories that would lead me down different paths, and then I would add more people to the mix. And I thought I was just going to interview people that I used to work with, but then I ended up, interviewing, the director and producer of the Mortal Kombat movie, and then that branched out to somewhere else. And I ended up with the CEO of Sega, Tom Kalinske at the time, who was also featured in Console Wars. And that branched out, so it was just like this journey that I had.
Scope creep gone wild here.
Exactly. You would think that from my game development days, I would learn.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
No, we don't have time to do this.
Yeah, but luckily, because it was just me making the film, it didn't get too crazy. But with that said, I would say that, over the 5-year development, if I were to concentrate it down on actual work on the film itself, and took out all the breaks I took and all the days off and things like that, it really took about 3 years to make. And the one thing I've learned since then is a lot of documentaries, they actually take minimum 5 years and as long as 10 years to make. So it kind of made me feel a little bit better about the process.
That's wild.
Was it difficult finding funding or promoting the film on Kickstarter? Or trying to get word out for people to hear about it, and then when you're trying to make this?
Yeah, I got really lucky. I got a lot of good advice, before I started, for one thing. And one thing was just, hey, prepare as much materials as possible ahead of time, And coming from game development, every game that I've worked on, I was fortunate enough to also work on a lot of the press materials for PR purposes. Okay. So I kind of had a good idea of what the press wanted. If you make it easy for the press to write about you, then they'll do it. If you give them all the material, just feed them information, right?
Mm-hmm. I've learned this.
Yeah, no, and so I kind of had that in mind already, and luckily because of my experience in game development, and I've had a lot of connection with the video game press. Before I started Kickstarter, I gave them the heads up. I just gave them a ton of materials and say, hey, I'm doing this. It'd be great if you write about it. Here are the dates for it and everything. And people got excited. And, I really, it's like that whole karma thing. I like to think that I've always been really cool with people and stuff. And so, I got a lot of that in return, which I'm really thankful for. So, the Kickstarter got a lot of press, just right off the bat, and not just with game press, but with Engadget wrote an article, Playboy wrote an article about it, which blew my mind. I think the Ringer had something.
Oh, the Ringer, nice.
Yeah, so it was really good. Yeah, I never thought that I'd be in Playboy. I was so happy, So wow, it's like.
hey, whatever, however.
I have to pick up this copy of Playboy this weekend.
I got to do it. I got to.
Maybe I'll pick up a couple.
I only read it for the articles.
Right here. Read it for the articles, right? For real.
Yeah.
So a couple questions. I think we were talking again a little bit like video games and these type of docu-series or mentaries. Like we were talking about, we had Steve Wiebe on before this. We were talking about King of Kong, and then I've also talked to Tim McVeigh from Man vs. Snake. He did that Man vs. Snake documentary. Was there? I guess where I'm going with this question: did you kind of take any cues or notes or thoughts, from some of those films, or there are countless others I could name too out there, but specific to that industry, video games itself?
Yeah, I think definitely. I love Man vs. Snake for one thing.
Yeah,
that blew my mind. It's so good. All those documentaries have been great. I think the two I would say right off the bat that I was very heavily influenced by was Indie Game, Indie Game the movie, and then there was another one that I ended up getting involved in later on was the Lost Arcade. Okay, and so the Lost Arcade specifically. It's very different in tone than what I did, but the thing is that it inspired me in terms of just like, hey, people are interested in arcades, and I remember this arcade in New York that they profiled, and there's something about it that fascinated me that they kind of took this, I almost sounds like just like the small subject matter, and then basically were able to make a feature film out of it. Right. And so they were actually on Kickstarter, and I reached out to them and told them, hey, I'd love to help you guys on this. I remember this arcade. Cool. So I ended up being the executive producer, or one of the executive producers on it. But Indie Game the movie I really liked a lot because just profiling video game developers and like really showing what they go through. Again, that was inspirational. One of the funny things is that I like to say that my film is almost like the anti-Indie Game the movie, just because in Indie Game the movie it's very, I don't know how to put it, it's very mellow in nature, and they have these indie developers that are just very thoughtful about things, but they're just very like, I don't know. It's just kind of a mellow feel to it. And then you get my film, and you get something like Eugene Jarvis that's just like a psycho.
Exactly.
Like all these crazy ass people. And so I thought that was pretty funny. Yeah, but I'll tell you the documentary that really informed the tone of my film though it has nothing to do with video games. It was a documentary I saw on Netflix. I think it's still on there. But it was about Canon films of the 80s. Okay. And I think it's called Electric Boogaloo, the Canon film story. If you get a chance to see it, it's just wild. Have you guys seen it?
It's pretty slick. Yeah, it's very. I thought it was really informative, to be honest.
Yeah, and it was, but it was just crazy. And you watch it, and it had this, the tone of it matched the wild style of Canon films. And so when I saw that, it's like, okay, I understand, like I got what they were doing. And so when I did Insert Coin, I made a point of just like, I wanted to feel as raucous as the games were. I wanted to make it feel like you were watching a documentary that was very informed by the energy of arcade games.
Yeah. Based on the trailer, it seems like a pretty, I'll say, rowdy film. Like it's but it's like you said, those are all. I mean, you've got
almost rock star,
right? Yeah. I mean, you've got big personalities in there. You've
exactly
got Kitzrow, you've got Pacina, Jarvis, Termel, right? Everybody, and they all have just giant personalities, and kind of like you're talking about too with Indie Game. I mean, there really wasn't even an industry at that point too either, right? And these guys and you yourself too were part of that industry, kind of creating it from nothing at that point in time.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a good point. That's definitely something that that we had in common. And whenever you talk to any of us from Midway from that era, we always say that the spirit of what we're doing, you see that in indie games. Indie game developers, they're just like, I'm going to take this nugget of an idea and just nuts with it and just run with it.
And that's the best place, the creative part. We had some developers on the other day. They're a VR development company from Cleveland, and they said that one of the guys that didn't join was kind of like the idea guy. And in my mind, I just keep thinking of he's coming up with all these crazy things. How do we wrangle this thing? And everyone else around was like, here's what we can do. Like, just stop. We have too much stuff. We have too much content. We don't know what to do with all. We need to bring you in. This is just wild. What questions do you guys have?
I was wondering, is there any obviously you mentioned the Lost arcade and insert coin, and how you wanted to convey a good story with both of them, or how the story affected you. Is there a gaming story out there you would like to you'd like to hit up on in the future? Maybe do a documentary on that, or some kind of form of media for
the next 5 years of your life.
Well, you could do it quicker. Like, is there? I'm just wondering, is there any other
cool.
like gaming story that has affected you that you would like to?
That's a tough one. I mean, there's a lot, especially because I know so many people, not just the people that I work with, but people just in the industry in general. I feel like there are so many subjects out there, and there's like one of the things that I've always been interested in is that I don't think anybody's ever documented how hard it is to make a game for a big studio.
Okay.
And like there are a lot of articles about it and things like that, but there is something about like wrapping up in documentary form to really see what it's like. I don't know if I'm necessarily the right person to do it, but it's a subject matter that I'm interested in, and particularly just how hard it is to make a game, and especially when you're working for a large company, just the crunch of it, and it's I'm torn, because when we worked at Midway, we crunched like crazy, but we like, whether it's from being really young and ignorant about it, or we just liked what we're doing, we didn't mind it. We were crunching like crazy because we were making really cool stuff, and we're happy to be in the industry and such. But now when I look back on it, and it's like, man, I don't know if I could ever do that again.
Yeah.
And there are people who are working in much more abusive companies that take advantage of that. And so, I think a very nuanced discussion of that culture would be interesting. And because it wouldn't necessarily be pro or anti-crunch, it's just like, hey, here's what it's like for people to make the games that you enjoy. Here's the sausage making, basically.
Right. Okay. Well, and also like the business side too. Like, I mean, you work for a large development studio. You have shareholders to keep happy. You've got deadlines. Yep. Now you have like downloadable content and DLC. Right. It's like all I can't imagine.
Churn.
Right. I mean, it'd be like, okay, we need to, because we've got a shareholder meeting Q4. Yep. We need to hit this date. We need to hit this target, but we need this DLC, and like.
You also need to please the fan base and make sure there's not
on
too
top
much
of
DLC.
That,
if you put too much DLC out there, then the fans get mad because they're just basically paying.
But you'd like to think like that churn and burn, like people have that passion in them still to do that. But that's a really good point. Like, I wonder if that still is at that level, or if it's even higher now. I have no idea.
I think it's I mean, from what I know of it, it's worse than ever.
Really?
Because now games, in general, especially when you're talking about AAA console games, like it used to be, you make a game, it goes out, and then maybe you'll do a couple of DLCs, a few months later and things like that. But it was basically a singular product. Now, games are basically games as a service. So you have, let's say, Fortnite out there, and you're constantly updating it. It's like, and you keep having to add assets on a constant basis, and then that's not just in PC games or mobile games. AAA games are starting to do that, and so the business model changes, and how do you just keep up with that demand?
Yeah,
do you feel like they're doing that to see how much they can get away with before there's like a breaking point between them and the fans, or the people that buy the games? Because it feels like they're just releasing games that are unfinished at some point.
I think it's a tough one. I know that there are many instances where games have come out that are basically unfinished, but they know that they're going to keep patching it anyways, and so on. But I think they have to be really careful, and I think we're getting to the point where, that some of the bigger companies are realizing, we might need to slow down, because it's the fans, they'll see a pattern after a while. You can't fool them that many times.
Yeah, with Battlefront, right? Battlefront was like the jumping the shark moment, right, for EA with the DLC there, and then I've been waiting on Cyberpunk, right? That's a good example too. When they punted that one again, was it Cyberpunk 2077? Like, they kicked that one again, and I can't even. When that literally happens, all I can think of is, oh man, I am glad I am not in that room. Like,
it's I've had I can't speak for that game, but it reminds me of friends of mine that worked on a game called Singularity that came out from Activision, and it was constantly delayed time after time. And I friends who worked on it, and they were just like hoping to just get it out there, because every time they delay it, their crunch got extended, and so it wasn't like, hey, it's not like, hey, we're delaying this game and but because we're going to fix things on that. I mean, they are obviously doing that, but at the same time, when they delay it, the people working behind the scenes, they're actually suffering because of mismanagement and everything. Yeah. And so they're like, oh my God, now I'm not going to see my family for another month because I'm going to be crunching again.
I like this. I think it's got legs. I like this project.
Sounds kind of like a horror movie, not a documentary.
It sounds like a horror film. Yeah.
But yeah, might need to be like a fictional film. You know what I mean? Instead of a documentary, it'd be like a docudrama.
If that's the case, you could take more liberties with it, and like I would imagine, like they can actually make like the devil is the big company trying to.
Yeah.
There you go. What other questions you guys have? I'm giving you guys some airtime here.
I got one.
I want to talk. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm very curious. I don't know if this will apply to you or not, but I saw you worked on Mortal Kombat as an actor, producer Tony Hawk, and you were also a programmer on WWF Super Wrestlemania. Yeah. I'm wondering, was there a heavy involvement with like some of these the people or company? Like, was Tony Hawk involved in the production of his game, or were WWE involved with their just to make sure like everything's on the up and up? And if so, like how heavy, and also were they like to the point of annoying?
So I'll start with Wrestlemania, because that was the first game I ever worked on.
Oh, wow.
And and so like when I first started Midway, the NBA Jam team had just finished NBA Jam, and based off that success, they wanted to do a wrestling game, which makes no sense.
Oh yeah, that's a clear next step, Basketball,
clearly NBA wrestling. And so that one, and I came in as as what they call a video artist. I did like a lot of the artwork for the animations and everything. And that was an amazing experience. And to this day, it left an imprint on me, because, I'd never worked on video games before. Suddenly I'm working on this game where people from the WWE, and back then it's called the WWF,
right.
We struck up a licensing deal between Midway and WWF. And, we was like, hey, we want to do this, this crazy Mortal Kombat style wrestling game. Mm-hmm. Can we use the likeness of your wrestlers? They're like, yeah, absolutely. To figure out a licensing deal. And we thought we were going to just, like paste their heads on some generic bodies and just try to fake it, kind of like what they did with NBA Jam.
Right.
And what ended up happening, they basically says like, no, we're going to send you the wrestlers. Yeah. Like, the actual wrestlers are going to show up in your studio for a couple of days for shooting. It's like, yeah, I was like, what? So next thing we know, like, Doink the Clown, Yokozuna, Undertaker, Bret Hart are showing up. And I'm like, holy crap. Yeah. And so, and that was amazing. And so they came in and they did all the signature moves. They did the same process as Mortal Kombat and everything, got them digitized. And we got to hang out with them for like 2 or 3 days each time. We like a lot of times when they came into town in Chicago for a show, that's when we would get their time. But then we would go see a show. And then after the show, we go out drinking at this dive of a bar.
Oh my God!
So you go to a match with them and then hang out afterwards?
Well,
we got to talk about this for like 5 minutes.
I got a question on the drinking stories. I tell me you got to drink with the Undertaker, because I hear his stories are legendary.
So not only did we get to drink with the Undertaker, Undertaker every morning of the shoot, he'd be in his dressing room getting ready, and he just looked like hell warmed over. Okay. Yeah. And what I would have to do is I would have to go to the supermarket and get a bottle of Jack Daniels to come in, get it to him at like 8 in the morning, get it to his dressing room. He would do whatever he needs to do with it. And then he comes out just like, all right, I'm ready. Let's do it.
He's like Andre the Giant.
Is this a known thing?
He's like Andre the Giant in terms of him and Jack Daniels go. There's lots of stories with them.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
It's insane.
That is awesome.
But they were all fantastic. I mean, there's one segment that got cut from the film, but it's going to be in the Blu-ray. Is the WrestleMania segment got cut from the film, but it's in the Blu-ray as an extra. And there's a story that Sal DeVita talks about where we all went drinking with Yokozuna, and Yokozuna basically fooled him into a drinking match, and next thing you know, Sal is like, it's like that scene from Team America. He's out in the back just vomiting everything out of his body.
Oh my God. Oh man.
So anyways, so that, I mean, that was, but the funny thing is that the WWF like gave us access to all these wrestlers, but then they left us alone. They're like, yeah, make whatever game you want. So we just went off.
Well, you guys just did NBA Jam though too, right? I mean, so
yeah, what's that?
You just had done NBA Jam, so they're like,
yeah. So they have at it, and so we just like went off, and then we end up making this crazy ass game, and that had nothing to do with wrestling, but that's how much freedom we had on it.
To be fair, the Jack Daniels story makes perfect sense with the animation of Undertaker shooting out the demons, having to wave his arms like that. That makes perfect sense on how.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Yeah.
And then like but you bring up Tony Hawk, so I was like very fortunate that I worked with Tony for like, man, it's like almost 10 years. So we did 4 games together, and it's amazing in that he was very involved in the making of the game, and it's not like. It's not like John Madden has nothing to do with his football games, right? Yeah. But Tony Hawk, he's playing the games, and and he always trusted us in terms of the general direction of the game. But when it came to, the controls of the games or how the characters look or how they move, the authenticity of the skate moves, he was very he wanted to make sure that we got that right, that we got the culture right. But like there are times where he was like playing the game in the middle of the night. And he's on Pacific time, and so like there were times where 2 or 3 in the morning I get a text from him while I'm in bed saying, "Hey, I noticed there's a bit of a lag on this. Can you fix this?" And so it's like, dude, it's like 3 in the morning over here.
And you're telling Tony Hawk to leave you alone.
Yeah, exactly. Can you leave me alone, please? But he's a out of all the people that I've worked with and everything, he was very involved, but he's just a great person. He's just amazing. Yeah. Somebody who's that successful, is being so down to earth. I
always kind of wondered with creating games with him, was he kind of a stickler for like skating physics? Like, okay, I want to, you can't really do this move in that kind of time span. So.
Yeah, it was weird. It depended on the situation. He understood the intent or just the context of it, because he understood that, hey, ultimately it's a video game. You have to make it fun.
Yeah.
And especially for a Tony Hawk style game. A Tony Hawk game is not a skateboarding simulator. In many ways they're very arcade like, and so in the very stylized. So, he's like for certain things he was more of a stickler on the physics than on other things, but he understood that you have to put the fun in. And those games are very different from, let's say, the EA skate games. And a lot of people talk about, the EA skate games are so much better than Tony Hawk, but that's like the equivalent of saying, Shake Shack is better than In-N-Out. They're just different types of burgers, right?
Yeah, Tony Hawk, you are flying 300 feet in the air to a power line, collecting letters that are floating around while.
Just like in real life.
While giving a bum a bottle of beer, right? That's right. That's Tony Hawk.
What else are you going to do with the bum on the power lines? I mean,
right, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that always cracked me up whenever they had that comparison. People would always say, why can't the Hawk games have EA style controllers? And because it's a totally different animal.
Right.
Oh man, that's awesome.
I know we definitely. I think we've gone off the rails, but in a good way. We came on to talk about Insert Coin. We've talked about Undertaker and Jack Daniels and Tony Hawk, but I think it's good. This is all good stuff.
Oh, excellent.
But you're like, good. I talk about the film all the time.
Exactly.
About Insert Coin, though, specifically, without giving too much away, is there any specific part of the film that you're most passionate about, or any specific story? Again, without going into details here, but anything that kind of stood out to you as most memorable in making the film?
Man, I mean, it's, boy, there's so many things. I really enjoyed the story about Narc. Okay. And, Narc is just this, crazy, crazy, over-the-top 80s style action cop video game where you're just shooting everything in sight. And the thing the story about that game, I kind of knew about it, but I didn't really understand at the time how much it affected all of the games coming out of Midway through the 90s. And so once I was talking with Eugene Jarvis about it, and he's telling me the story of how it came to be. Basically, after the video game crash, Williams stopped making video games, and he went off to California to do, to go back to school and everything. And he wanted to come back to make one more crazy video game. and he wanted to make it look like a movie, and that game's, they created new technology to digitize actors to put them into the game. And just everything, you look at that game and everything that they did in there directly ties into Mortal Kombat and NBA Jam. And so, just hearing him talk about that and hearing how he put the team together and getting just all this pushback from the higher ups, saying like, I don't know if you want to be blowing up people and showing body parts and blood and fire on arm, on severed arm. Is that really a good idea? Right?
As we're trying not to promote like drug use, and that's like
the game is called. I mean, it's about narc. Don't do drugs.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because that was during Reagan, right? I mean, it's like all about not doing drugs, but then the polar opposite is, well, we're just going to blow the crap out of everybody on this monitor for the next hour.
Exactly.
It's almost a parody at that point.
And it was just like, just so over the top. And so you look at it, and it's funny because you look at a game like that now, and it's like, man, the good guys in that game were actually the bad guys.
Right. Blowing everybody up. Okay.
Yeah, sure, why not?
They had it coming.
I'm sorry.
They had it coming, Kevin said.
Yeah. But yeah, I knew that was an important game, but I didn't realize how important it was, because a lot of back then there was there were no tools to make games. Everything was hand coded, for lack of a better way of explaining it. So even the tools to capture video, they had to program that on the spot. They didn't have Photoshop back then, so just making animation was so painful. And so that was a nice surprise, and that kind of set the tone of the overall story arc of Insert Coin, which is how a crazy designer named Eugene Jarvis sets the tone for not just Midway Games in the 90s, but just arcade games in general. Because once that Pandora's box was open, where you can have crazy over the top action in a video game, everybody jumped on the bandwagon.
It's just wild, like all these names and everybody involved and everything. So, I apologize, I might get this wrong, but Jarvis, did he pinball? Was pinball?
Yeah,
because
he did.
Williams, right? Or was it at?
Yeah, yep, yeah, he did. That's the thing, and we kind of touch on it a little bit, but Williams Electronics,
right?
They started mainly with pinball for a long time, and then in the 80s, Jarvis did the Williams' first video game. So Jarvis was a pinball designer.
That's what I thought. Right?
He wanted to make a video game, so he created Defender, and Defender blows up, sells over 50,000 units. And you can remember a unit is a couple of $1,000s.
Right.
So just becomes wildly successful. Then does Robotron, Stargate, all these other games, leads the department. So they were just, riding high. And then obviously the video game crash of the mid 80s happened, and it was just obliterated. But pinball was still very strong. Pinball survives so many different eras. It's kind of amazing.
Right. And I'm a huge pinball enthusiast, and where I guess I was going with that too is, like, as you're talking about this and mentioning those names, that's why I brought up Jarvis too, because I'm like, I don't think anyone's really done a true pinball documentary, and pinball has been, have you seen any? I can't think of any that I know.
The only one that I'd seen was one called Tilt, but that was really specifically on, ironically, almost the same era as Insert Coin, the last gasp of pinballs pinball in the 90s. I don't know if you guys remember, there was Midway. Well, actually, Williams Electronics turned into Williams Valley Midway, and they were doing the Pinball 2000 concept. I don't know if you guys remember that.
No, I don't know.
It was they came out with a few different versions of it, but one of them was Star Wars Episode 1.
Oh,
and
yeah,
it was
that one.
It was a pinball video game thing. Yeah. And so, that there was a documentary about that era and how they were trying to revitalize pinball and the death of pinball at that point.
But pinball is like thriving now. Stern is front and center, and there's Jersey Jack, and there's lots of new companies that are spinning up. Pinball is.
Pinball, yeah.
I feel like in 10 years from now, people will be doing stuff about pinball, if not sooner. It's really revived. Kind of like where we were talking about Steve Wiebe and arcade and classic gaming, and even the point like getting us here and you doing this film, right? I feel like pinball's. I don't know a lot of stories about pinball myself.
Yeah, pinball is so deep. That's actually, like we were talking earlier about what other projects might be interesting, but pinball has been brought up a lot, and but that goes so far back.
I know, right?
It's kind of crazy. It's just like, man, like whoever wants to take that on, like it like needs to do a docuseries about
it. Back to like almost prohibition, right? Because it was like gambling and banned and destroying pinball
You'd
machines.
have to have like
at
least a miniseries of that.
Yeah, definitely. And ironically, a lot of the classic pinball designers, they all ended up at Williams Valley Midway. Besides Jarvis, like and a lot of the people at Stern now are all from Williams Valley Midway. But like, there's this one guy, Roger Sharp, and he's in Insert Coin, but he actually wrote a book he wrote like the definitive book about pinball, and he, from what I remember him saying that he was part of some legislature or something like that to make sure like pinball wasn't illegal. There was some weird thing that happened with pinball.
Yeah. Because I know it was banned because people thought it was like a form of gambling, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But then they had to argue that there is an element of chance, but it's mostly based on skill.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it.
So I'm doing a quick time check here too. John's helping us out in the booth. He's chirping in my ear. We wanted to give you oh, there it is. That's my keychain, by the way. So you've got these insert coin. See, it's an actual insert coin.
Awesome.
And they light up. It's probably the heaviest keychain you'll ever have. But these are from New Wave Toys. So again, if you guys donate during this segment, Josh Tsui again on with us talking about insert coin, and we're giving away some of those keychains as well. And he said he's able to ship out some Blu-rays as well. So please help us out. Again, everything's going to United Cerebral Palsy of Greater Cleveland. You can help donate at GameCleveland.com. But Josh, I want to also give you a chance to. I know where we kind of started the hour, but to promote, what you've got is kind of just a normal week here in the middle of November. But what you've got going on this week and where people can follow you, check out what you've got going on, the documentary, and I will shut up.
No worries. Yeah, no. So, Insert Coin, the documentary that I directed and produced, is coming out Wednesday, November 25th on Alamo Drafthouse On Demand, and also a whole bunch of virtual cinemas that are in relationship with local indie theaters. And so the best place to go to is insertcoindoc.com, and there's a screening page, and from there are multiple links to how and where you can see the film. The other thing is on Monday, also through Alamo On Demand, there's going to be a sneak preview watch party, and it's going to be with myself, Mark Trammell, the creator of NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, and Sal DeVita, also the co-creator of NBA Jam and NFL Blitz and Wrestlemania for both of them and myself. We're going to be at the watch party doing live Q&A and watching along with people. It's going to be hosted by Arda Orca from ESPN, and it's going to be a blast. And then from there, after Thanksgiving, there's going to be another watch party with some special guests also coming on. But in general, the film's coming out Wednesday. Would love for you all to see it. Make it the #1 film of the week if possible. Yeah. After your year Thanksgiving and pass out, go take a watch.
Where's that watch party again? Where do the Alamo Draft House?
Yes. Yeah, so go to Alamo. If you just look for Alamo On Demand,
okay,
you can. It'll be right on the front page.
Alamo On Demand. Then insertcoindoc.com, and then also too, I know you put a bunch of cool stuff, kind of behind the scenes and what's going on social media on your Twitter account, right, or any other Facebook or Twitter or any social media stuff.
Yeah.
Come on, get with the program here.
Thanks. That's why you're here, man.
Right.
So on Instagram and Twitter, the handle is InsertCoinDoc, and then there's a Facebook page. They just do a search for Insert Coin Documentary, and you can be able to find that. And then on YouTube, on Insert Coin Documentary, I've been putting up a lot of behind-the-scenes videos. It's literally raw footage that's not in the documentary that I put up there, and it's interesting. Like I put some things up early on just for fun, and people freaked out about it. So there's like stuff from WWF. We have behind-the-scenes footage of Shawn Michaels, his sessions back there. I just put up the other day the motion capture session with the cheerleaders from NBA Jam that's never been seen before. And there's a lot of really funny things.
For the ad shoot, like, or what? Was it for that ad shoot they did, or for the actual cheerleaders? Like
no, it's for in the game. It's so funny. There's we literally have hours of footage of them doing different cheers and stuff, and then in the game, I think we used 20 frames.
That's what I'm gonna say. I don't remember. It doesn't really stand out to me in terms of a lot of animation frames.
Yeah,
I can't imagine how many different sprites you had to build or images for cheerleading.
Well,
I personally just thought they were just 3 pop-up pictures, to be honest.
Yeah.
I really totally forgot about that, sadly.
So we have all this stuff up there, and but yeah, like back then we shot a lot of footage that ended up just going nowhere. So I had access, when I made the film, I had access to all this footage. So I'm just like, you know what, just for fun, this is really more fan service than anything. Yeah. So I'm just going to put all this raw materials up there, just so people can see all the shenanigans.
This is really cool. Well, we genuinely appreciate you coming on, Kevin or Brent. Anything else before we let Josh go?
There was a question in the chat.
Undertaker question?
No, unfortunately not. Kevin Camarillo from the chat wants to know who'd win in a fight, Sub-Zero or Liu Kang?
Wait, what was the question again?
Who'd win in a fight, Sub-Zero or Liu Kang?
Oh my God!
You probably get that a lot. I'm guessing.
Yeah. Considering in a few games they were both myself, so who would I? I think it was.
Well, you would win technically.
So he's taking Sub-Zero.
Oh yeah.
I think it's Sub-Zero. Yeah. Sub-Zero is just too cool, man. Those ninjas, those original ninjas are still the best.
Yeah, the original ninjas are.
That's the right answer. I'm back here in the audio booth. I had to ask one question before we got you out of here, but.
I like that Sub-Zero was just too cool. That was a good one.
Oh God! I just realized I did that. My apologies.
You're gonna end on that?
Yeah. I think we should end on that.
It's a high note. It's a high note. No, but Josh, this has been super fun, man. I really appreciate you coming on. Really appreciate connecting. Wish you the best of luck this week. We will definitely be promoting as well. Appreciate you taking the time on a Sunday to come on and support our charity and the cause. And it's been fun. It's been really great talking to you.
Yep. Looking forward.
No, thank you. Yeah, thanks so much. You guys are doing great stuff, and I really appreciate you inviting me.
Cool. All right. Cool. Well, we'll catch you later, Josh. Thanks again, man.
Looking forward to
good luck.
See you guys.
We'll see you.
Take care, bud.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Well, that was crazy cool.
Yeah. Sub-Zero.
Very excited for that film to come out, though.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.